Hello, everyone, and welcome back to On the Curbs IndyCar edition. I'm your host, Nate Woods, and we're back to discuss the latest round of the 2026 IndyCar season from St. Louis. I'm joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Thiemo Albers-Daly. Thiemo, how are we doing?
Think my heart rate's just about returned to normal. That's how
Yeah,
I'm doing. How are you?
about the same. Yeah, we were treated with a whole weekend of amazing racing, I think. It sounded like you may have had a little bit different takeaway from the F1 race than I did, but but all
That
around,
was
I
all
think
right. I had IndyCar to clear up the palate.
uh, from uh, from a standpoint of a an American watching Monaco, uh, that race is usually pretty boring and a follow the leader type race. Not a lot of action, not a lot of drama. But that race had both of those things.
Did, but mercifully then we got the IndyCar and that gave us everything on steroids, it felt like, and we didn't need to have any arguments or discussions of any kind after that. We were just sitting there going, we've watched one of the best races in years, and that's nothing to say against the other races. Just it
Yeah, I mean,
went
we
above and beyond.
this whole season has been really a pretty good season,
Mm. No,
above
I was trying to
average, I
think
would
where to
say.
place it in the ranking so far. I was like, you know what? It might have to go top. I've enjoyed a lot of the race this year. I think only Long
Mhm.
Beach has sort of let me down in the sense of not an awful
Yeah,
lot of much happened. The Monaco of IndyCar, if you will, which is ironic given Detroit's presence on the calendar. You'd think if there was anyone that would be a comparison, but then this race came along, and yeah, I think once again, once we get to it, the lap by lap race analysis that we usually do is going to be more of a reference point because we're just going to be spending we could do an whole
right.
podcast on that alone, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was great.
yeah. I think the only thing that this race was missing was Will Power flipping the bird to somebody. I think it was really the only thing this race was missing.
I think as much as he said after the race that was a bit of a weird one, but I'll take it. And it worked well when we were on track. He didn't have anyone really to flip the bird off to because it actually
That's
went
true.
well for
Yeah,
him,
yeah, that's
which
right.
is rare this season so far. I was glad for it. The two drivers that have had bad luck all year, they didn't necessarily have spectacular races, him and Mick Schumacher, but they finished. They moved up
Yes.
from where they started. You know
Yeah.
what? I will take that.
Well, before we jump into really diving into the race, we got a little bit of news to discuss, including one of our top finishers. We found out this week that Ed Carpenter Racing had signed a multi-year deal with Christian Rasmussen, which honestly, before this weekend, kind of had us scratching our heads a little bit.
Definitely had you scratching your head a bit because we were talking about this before, and I said to you, you've got until Tuesday to figure out how you're going to justify this. And lo and behold, Sunday night comes
And
around and
here we go.
it justifies it for you. Um, Second last in the points up until this weekend, and
Yeah.
it's so amusing because I think 14th was his best finish of the year so far up now, and then just there's
Yeah.
this third place now. I really hope he doesn't go back down to how he's performing the rest of the season, and not just this one podium at the end of the season, going, "What on earth happened in St. Louis?" But after that performance, he got a podium there last year. He's great on a level. We saw that in Phoenix, even though it didn't quite work out for him. He does have that potential, but as they were saying in commentary in Detroit, you need to now build on the other circuits. You can't have a successful campaign of any kind just performing on the ovals.
Yeah.
If they were doing some kind of moneyball situation where we had a bunch of drivers rotating and you just brought him in for ovals and then substituted him for someone else for the road courses, say, that would be one thing. But I don't think that's ECR strategy just at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, but the multi-year aspect means they've clearly got faith and confidence in him and
Hmm.
want to develop him on that trajectory so
Yeah.
that he hopefully isn't just good on ovals, he's good elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, we always kind of knew that he was going to do well at this track. He's always performed pretty well here at Gateway, and so I don't think it's necessarily a huge surprise that he finished well. Maybe a little bit of surprise that he made the podium, but
Hmm.
um, looking back at the beginning of the weekend anyway, um, started what 19th, and
Big
you're
as
like,
mover at the weekend.
yeah, and you're like, well, okay, well, gonna be just another mid pack afternoon for him, and
I
yeah,
took that
he
personally.
showed up. Yeah. We got the news that Kevin Blanch is retiring. He's been the IndyCar officiator since the beginning of the year, and I think um, maybe he's just fed up with the officiating.
Yeah, I found it curious that he was retiring so soon after taking on that role. You know,
Yeah.
he's been in various IndyCar roles since 2003, so from that aspect,
Mm.
fair enough. You've been here a
Yeah.
while. But for this role, it's like maybe I should have just quit a bit sooner, or retired a bit sooner. This
Yeah.
role, it's like, this is the epilogue I didn't need. I should have gone. But yeah, long career in IndyCar, so big name from the sport is
Yeah.
hopefully riding off into the sunset, or the officiating takes him where
Yeah.
the blood levels and the stress levels get a bit too high for him.
Hey, you never know, it's a hard sport to get out of even when you're on the back end. And
It's true.
I look at our next bit of news. Ryan
I was
Hunter-Reay.
about to say there's a segue if there ever was
Yep.
one.
Ryan Hunter-Reay has been named Arrow McLaren's uh, new sporting director.
Hmm. Which is interesting because obviously they've got Tony Kanaan in there as well, former
Yeah.
racer, goes behind the scenes,
Yep.
stuck with the team, isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Um, it would be interesting to see them both at the Indy 500 next year in a driver and behind the scenes capacity. How many
Yeah.
roles can you juggle? So that's going to be interesting one to see. But again, it makes sense on paper at least because you know you've got a wealth of experience from on track, which hopefully will help the people behind the scenes understand that whole aspect a bit more. Because Aaron McLaren, they are missing something, right?
Yeah.
Then they're up there, but they're not. They won one race this year, but arguably not with the driver they'd be expecting to win it with. It's
Yeah.
a circuit that you wouldn't think would necessarily be the place they would do it. So they're still looking for something. So maybe they're doubling down on the driver aspect in that respect, and hopefully that will do something for them. I don't know how soon we will see the result of that. I don't think it's going to be an overnight thing, but that's solid name.
Yeah. I think wasn't this the position that when Tony Kanaan first came to the team, wasn't this kind of the position that he
I think
filled
so
before he
because when I
moved on
saw that,
to
I thought, didn't we have that already? And then I read, oh no, he got promoted. That's
yeah,
right. Yes,
yeah.
they've made space so that he can be.
Yeah.
Yes, that I'm with it now.
Yeah. Tony's he's the team principal now, I think.
Yes, in
They're very
principle.
clear. Yeah. So for
It
IndyCar,
seems a bit
so
like the McLaren F1 sort of situation where you have the two men at the top, as it were, of Zach and
yeah,
Andrea, and they both got their roles, but one of them is going to be maybe more public facing the other one, so that the other guy can get on with the in-house stuff a bit more. So they've got that balance, which
yeah,
seems to be kind of working for McLaren in the F1 side of things. So
yeah.
why not try and make it work for
Try
the
an
IndyCar side
IndyCar.
of things?
Yeah. So like we mentioned, this was a an amazing race. And we could go through the lap by lap, but I mean, when I wrote the notes during the race, I got 2 pages of notes here.
So
Uh,
I think once you started writing it, you realize you were going to be there a while.
yeah, well, once we started getting red flags for weather, I think we knew we were going to be there for a
Well,
while.
I was committed at that point. I was like, oh, I can't go to bed. I've got
I
to stay
mean,
up.
it was bad enough here in Indianapolis when the race ended at 12:30 in the morning. Uh, I can't imagine what it was like for you watching the race because you did stay up and watch the race. I give you props for that. You
Yeah.
sent me a message at like 10:30, and I'm like, what is Thiemo still doing up? Shouldn't you be in
IndyCar, I'm
bed?
dedicated.
I guess. I mean, it's not above me to set an alarm and watch an F1 race that comes on at 3 in the morning. So I mean, guess
Exactly.
I so um I guess we
It
can
was
jump
only a
right in.
6 a.m. bedtime for me in the end. It was
Oh, there
fine.
you go. uh I guess we jump right into the team by team analysis because
I think that's the
our
best way to do it.
the number one name on the list is Josef Newgarden, who was our winner this weekend.
Yeah, qualifies eighth, finishes first. Just absolute performance from him, just fantastic. You know, he loves this circuit. We knew that already. He'd won 50% of the last 10 races there. So it was very much 50-50, as we said, coming into the weekend after we'd reviewed Detroit, and he delivered. And that's as well, he's still carrying the injury from the Indy 500. So this is all
Exactly.
him with
Yeah.
his foot not properly there. It was an amusing graphic that I sent you that they then updated again during the race on Sunday of drivers with injuries. And it's at
Yes.
least five drivers because I didn't realize Roman Grosjean had broken his wrist or had injured it in some way in Detroit.
Oh.
Um, and you go, oh, we missed that. And there's another name for this. And Kirklet, I didn't realize his ribs were still
Yeah.
so bad
Right.
from
Yeah.
Indy. You go, my word, what's happening? But he just come to life here. He says about how much he loves racing in Nashville, his home race. But
Mhm.
you got to think this is an adopted home, surely, at least by now, because you
Yeah.
don't win that many times in a location and not have some kind of attachment to it. Um, Really, the whole team did pretty well. Scott McLaughlin had this gorgeous livery, a tribute livery for Team Penske. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that, which may mean I go back and watch the old races rather than we get it anytime soon. But um, qualifies fifth, finishes fifth. Doesn't really tell the whole story of his race, but it was just nice to see him back up there, especially after the frustrations he caused me in Detroit. Um, and then Maluka somehow is the loser, which we don't see very often for Team Penske. But even that isn't, losing in the massive sense of it, and only in that he qualified second and finished seventh.
Yeah.
He'll be disappointed with that because he keeps putting it out on Saturday, and Sunday gets him in
Yeah.
one way or the other. But still, top 10 finish, seventh isn't bad. Possibly that team's strongest weekend in definitely this season, but in a very long time for all three to be together. I mean, you take all of
Yeah.
last year, I don't know what their best combined result would have been, but I think we're going to 2024 immediately there before we even start talking about that, right?
Yeah. I think Newgarden was probably the only driver that started in the top 10 that really showed out the whole race. You had other drivers that started in the top 10, Kyle Kirkwood, Dave Lucas that started a little bit higher from where they finished. But I mean, Newgarden moving up from eighth and um, led a decent portion of the race, 53 laps. And I mean, there was legitimately six or seven drivers that easily could have won this race, which we don't see
And
very often. And a lot of those drivers were coming from well back in the pack that
six,
had
six, seven
legitimate trouble.
drivers, none of which were Pelot, which was also a fun headache to go
Well,
around when you look at it later. No, because we'll talk about it, but you look at the fuel issue there alone.
yeah,
Once that kicked in, he was out of it, and
yeah, that's
that's not
true.
by chance. That's a genuine racing thing.
Yeah.
So he was up there, but arguably was never in the hunt for the entire race, which is mad to say when you're saying about six or seven drivers, you've got VK up there, but you don't have below.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned the throwback paint scheme on McLaughlin
Hmm.
and uh and maybe this goes back to I was never a Penske fan back during that era.
Hmm.
And so the paint scheme didn't do it
Wasn't for
for me.
you.
It wasn't for me. I recognized it, but I'm just like, okay, whatever. But man, they hyped it up on the broadcast. Woo.
It, for someone who didn't have that as a reference point, loved it. And I'm now going to be going back and trying to find it because if that's kind of the updated version, then the other one's going to look a little bit dated, look a little bit rugged probably, but it's still probably going to be quite nice to watch. So my IndyCar history lessons continue as they always do.
And maybe it just goes back, years ago I was a smoker, but I wasn't a Marlboro smoker. Maybe that was what it was. So but yeah, David Lucas, definitely had a great Saturday, putting it on the outside of the front row, but he just he never looked like he had the car that was gonna really perform. He didn't lead any laps.
Hmm.
And just I think seventh place is a great finish for him, considering he just did not have the car that was going to be able to lead any laps.
And considering the championship implications too, right? In a race where the championship leader is well out of it, I was worried about what he was going to do in terms of finish position, what Kirkwood was
Yeah.
going to do, because usually when Pelot isn't there, they then also, in
Aren't
solidarity with
there?
him, drop off.
Yeah.
And you go, no, that's not how this is supposed to work. But they were both up there in Q7. Yeah, it would have been nice a little bit like Coke would be a bit higher up, but you're still getting much more in the points side of things than Polo is, and that's going to be crucial because that gap's come way down now. We'll get to that later, but that's what you need to be at least in the mix and consistency to be there. Which for Malukas, he's been incredibly consistent this year. So for us to be not necessarily complaining about P7, but noting how bad that is for him shows how good he's been, right?
Yeah. 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 Still third in the points too. So,
Exactly.
and crept a little bit closer to Plo, but still a good ways back.
Halfway point in the championship, we still got
Yeah,
time.
we still got plenty of time. Aaron McLaren, we had Pato Ward started ninth, finished 11th. Christian Lundgaard starting 16th, finishing 10th. And then Nolan Siegel starting near the rear in 22nd and finishing near the rear in 24th. Unfortunate day for him. But yeah, I mean, Pato Ward and Lundgaard just seemed like they just couldn't put anything together to get up to the front all day. And usually the only time we were seeing them on screen was when Christian Rasmussen or Renus VK or Will Power were fighting to get by him.
Yeah, bizarre one because obviously we know with Lundgaard, ovals are not his speciality. So on the one
Yeah.
hand, P10 finish from 16th
P10
was
is
great for
actually
him.
pretty great.
Um, but you just didn't see much of it. I think with Award, that was the more peculiar thing because okay, yeah, he moved up two spots, one of which you would argue is thanks to Polo dropping out of it because obviously he started on pole, but you still gotta be there. But a bit like Lucas, neither one of them looked there for much of the weekend.
Right.
I don't know if you saw the moment of final practice with O'Ward, about 99% close to the wall. You couldn't get much closer without whacking into it. It was infinitesimally small, the gap between his tyre and the wall there. So he's clearly pushing, but for not a lot of reward. And they're still high up there in the point standings, but it's we're at the halfway point.
Yeah.
We're going to start talking about who's really in this. And I get the feeling that it's going to be more of a bridesmaid situation for the two, unless Aaron McLaren can find some way to turn things around. Like we said earlier, they've only won one race this year, and
Yeah.
that's for the driver that is still, I think, he's either regardless of if he's ahead of Award or not, I can't remember off the top of my head, but
He
there's only
is.
a smattering of points between them. It's not very
Yeah.
many.
So Lundgaard's in fourth and then Award's fifth, 7 points back.
Yeah,
So
not much of a
not much.
difference. So I don't know what has to happen there that isn't dramatic for them
Mhm.
to be brought back into the championship hunt. Siegel, I feel like I'm going through a weird process with him this season. I was kind of with you at the start, and now I'm maybe you're on the journey with me. I don't know. I'm warming to him a little bit, not necessarily in a way for him to definitely keep his seat, but I'm not minding him as much. And I thought it was a really unfortunate incident that he had with Polo because it on an oval it feels like space awareness is less than it would be in other places.
Mhm.
Don't know why. It's just something I feel when, the oval, the speeds you're going at so often are so much higher than you would be anywhere else that
Yeah.
it seems like there's plenty of room and then there's not. And it was just such a brief touch, but he was gone. And I did, I was a bit frustrated that Polo didn't get anything on the stewarding front, but that may
Mhm.
have just been one of the F1 hangovers more than anything.
Yeah.
But then thinking, yeah, it was a bit of clearly wasn't intentional. It was a racing incident, but then the racing gods, as we'll get to, balance things out later anyway with Polo. So I don't think Siegel would have lost too much sleep over the lack of consequences for his incident because they
Yeah.
came back and got him later, right?
Yeah. With that Siegel incident, immediately after the incident, they cut to Siegel's uh, audio, and
Mm,
he's immediately like, what happened? I gave him plenty of room." And I'm like, "Well, that's what somebody who just got crashed says on the radio." But then you go back and look at the replay, it's like, yeah, he gave Plo like a lane and a half, and I'm like, okay, maybe he did give him the space. What happened there? And it's you're always gonna have racing incidents. And just I think I'm as much as we want to be harsh on Alex Palou and be like, oh yeah, you crashed a car, you're supposed to be the best. It's like
We don't get the,
that could
the
have
opportunity very
that
much to criticize him.
there were 23 other cars other than those two that could have had the exact same incident. So
Mm,
um so yeah, I don't think any fault of Alex Palou. I mean, it's 100 or 260 lap race, and that means you've
it
got
happens.
520 ends of the track and 1,000 corners. So uh, it, for that to be one of the only bumping accidents during a race this length is pretty good. Um,
When you think about the other instance, right, I don't think there was anything else caused by contact, really. It was just Rahal versus the track. It was
yeah,
Kurt versus his car again.
yeah, it's true.
Um, and I think everyone else, you had very, very close moments, especially where Rasmussen was involved, but
Yeah,
you didn't have any other contact. So it was
yeah,
I'm kind of remarkable that was the only instant we got. And yeah, in hindsight, maybe just a bit of a racing incident, but just such a shame because Siegel, he was on a steady enough march up through the field. I don't know where he would have finished. I don't think he would have been in the top 10, but after his recent run of couple of strong performances, it would have been nice to keep that going for a little bit longer.
yeah, yeah. Andretti Global, I'd say pretty decent weekend for them, all in all. Just a
Yeah.
few minor hiccups. Will Power charging through the field, qualified 21st, finishes eighth. Kirkwood starting third, finishing sixth. And Marcus Ericsson qualifying 12th and finishing in the middle of the podium in second.
Yep. Well, not quite in the middle of the podium because
But
that'd
not
be
there.
first place, but
Yeah, just
yeah,
off
I
to
know
the
what you mean.
side. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah, I
just such
mean,
a good performance from him, right?
yeah,
Marcus
it
Ericsson.
really, he had a bobble on one of his pit stops, and
Hmm.
I think a couple of commentators were ready to chastise that and make that the reason why he didn't win. But at the end of the race, you look at it and he was um, what uh, not quite a second back, a little over half a second back, but he didn't have anything for Newgarden in the
Mm.
last 20 laps of the race. So to kind of say, oh, it was a bad pit stop that kept him from winning might be a little harsh.
Yeah, I don't think so in that instance. He was saying how on rails his car was all race long, and he didn't really do anything wrong. It was just Newgarden had more. I think that's where you see the difference, right, between good and great drivers. And we talk about Newgarden a bit because he's obviously on, I think, what is it, sixth place now on the all-time list for race wins. You are going up against someone who is a force of nature in IndyCar. And the thing is, Marcus Ericsson, because he's won the Indy 500, he's a solid enough driver on his day. But I think even when he's at his best, he's not going to beat someone like Palou, like Newgarden. It's
Yeah,
just an unfortunate reality for him. If there is a limit, and these drivers can get a bit more out of it, and there's nothing against you. It's just how that particular cookie crumbles. But
right.
that being said, loved seeing that fight because you just weren't expecting it coming into the weekend. If you said we were going to have a three-way fight for the lead between Rasmussen, Ericsson, and Newgarden, you'd be sniffing my breath trying to figure out what I'd been drinking. Um, so I will happily take second place. Kirkwood as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I mean,
Go
Ericsson
on,
did
sorry.
lead the most. Yeah, he led the most laps in the race with 114 as well. I mean, he was up
Scott
front for a
Dixon
good
winning
chunk
it.
of the day. Yeah, I mean, he's up front for a good amount of the day, and it didn't take him long to get to the front either, which was
Mm,
great to see.
he was
You
on a
know,
mission.
yeah. I mean, so's Power though. Man, he was fun to watch.
Oh,
Hit.
I'm so relieved that he got up there and didn't have anything go wrong majorly.
Oh,
We're so
yeah,
used to him being up
yeah,
there at the moment, and then
mm,
something just happens, and you go, please no,
yeah.
please no.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way. I was like, oh man, I really hope this is a great day for him because, like I mentioned before, the only thing this race was missing was a willpower flipping the bird, and
Mm.
we definitely would have gotten that, I think, if he would have made all of those moves on track, got towards the front, and then something happened.
We've got a metaphorical one maybe and going into the racing gods going, I can still get there
Yeah,
despite what your
that's right.
intentions are.
Yeah.
Um,
Power was really fun to watch. Him and Rasmussen moving up through the field kind of together
hmm.
from where they started. And
Which,
that
given
was
their history in Phoenix, I was particularly worried about.
yeah, yeah, true. Um, but yeah, Kirkwood, he looked strong all day. And sixth place, I think is probably where he deserved to be, I would say. Late in the race, he just didn't look like he had the pace to
Hmm.
be a contender. Um, but actually, look at this. He didn't lead any laps. That's
No, I don't
actually
think so. He was
surprising.
just kind of
Yeah,
consistently there the whole
yeah,
time. And
yeah,
I think, what was it, the last 50 and certainly the last 30 laps or so was just a
mm,
straight fight. And
yeah.
you just see who's got anything left on the table. And he didn't. Six still isn't bad. He's
Sixth
still,
is
like,
great for this
Maluka's
team.
got
Yeah.
some great points on the board for the
Mm.
championship. He gets a bit closer. Um, so it's maybe taking that consistency approach of, I'm not going to maybe try and push this too hard because I'd rather take the points for this than risk it all for fifth. I feel maybe the race win, he'd have been maybe more tempted.
Yeah.
But for fifth, fourth, or sixth, you go, okay, let's just regroup and then I'll try again in Road America.
Yeah. Is this the best team finish that Andretti's had this year? I would
I'm
have to think
I'm
so.
I'm thinking of Arlington being that was what second, first, third, and fourth was it? Ericsson was just off the podium there.
Maybe that's
Um,
it.
but
Mm,
definitely the second strongest, at least, weekend for them as a whole outfit. Because I don't think it was any of the races, mainly because of willpower, just having whatever happening to him happens.
yeah. Okay. Yep. Second best. I got it pulled up here. Java House, Arlington. Yep. First, third, and fourth. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Just had to fact check that real quick.
No, no, it's all good. I'm glad.
I'm
Race time's
glad you
ready. We've got
remember
to
those
check
kind of
this year.
things. Yeah. And the only reason why I have to question it is because, all the other races they've had this season
Yeah.
have been excellent, absolute dog doo-doo, it feels like. So, Chip Ganassi Racing, weird day for them. Alex Palou,
Yeah,
of course, on the pole, had the pole by what, over a mile per hour?
yeah, just
I
insane.
mean, just an
You know,
insane lap that he put down. Um, Finishes 17th. We'll get to that in just a second. Scott Dixon started seventh, finishes 12th, and then Kiffin Simpson qualifying 14th, finishing 21st.
he had a
Uh,
weird day.
yeah, all three of the drivers had weird things kind of going on that really just took them out of contention, I think. Yeah, with
Hmm.
Alex Palou, led a good portion of the race, and you're like, oh yeah. As soon as he took the lead, you're like, at the beginning of the race, and just started pulling away. You're like,
Here we
is
go
this going to be
again.
another one of those days? And he had the incident with Siegel, which I don't necessarily think hurt him. He was running third at the time
Hmm.
when that incident occurred, but uncharacteristically ran out of gas on pit road. That
Yeah,
team really made a gamble with him. And I guess maybe when you have that big of a points lead, you can kind of gamble on things like rain.
again, it just seems so uncharacteristic, like you say, because there's a team that they don't take risks like that, right? Why would they? Because they don't want to get complacent and then have the gaps close up, and then that's exactly what happened. And it was the same incident for Simpson as well. He ran out of fuel much earlier in the
Yeah,
race and
yeah,
had that whole weird thing where then he's out, but then we bring him back in because we can actually get him back out now, and all the rest of it.
yeah.
So that was a very bizarre thing, and
And Dixon almost running out of gas.
yeah, yeah.
Right before Pillow did run out of gas. So
This is my question for you, because he came in for an emergency pit stop, which
yeah,
was something I did not know was a thing. So
yep,
great to learn. Um, and obviously, you only come in if it's an emergency. You have your 2 seconds of fuel so that you can make it to the next lap, so that you can come in and do it properly.
yeah.
So as it's an emergency, extenuating circumstances, what else can you do short of running out of fuel? Why was he then penalised to the rear of the field? Because that seems kind of in confliction with following all of the rules here, but I'm still getting penalised.
So the the emergency pit is just for fuel. You can
Hmm.
only take up to 2 seconds of fuel, and all that's there for is you're going to run out of fuel.
Hmm.
It's better to take the penalty than
But so
run
you
out of
still get a
fuel.
penalty for it regardless. That was always sort of on the
Yeah,
cards.
if you take the emergency stop, you get a penalty. And I feel like we've had this recently.
I don't
Um,
recall it that, but that was the only thing. It stood out to me more because I just thought it seemed you're already, you know, having the punishment of
yeah,
this clearly isn't where I want to be,
yeah,
and this isn't helping me. I'm going to have to come in again
yeah.
anyway. I'm
You're
already
you're
screwed.
you're 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 the penalty that you incur by entering a closed pit road, which is essentially what that emergency pit
Hmm.
is that pit road is closed. But you're going to run out of gas if you don't come in. And so if you were to run out of gas on track and get passed by a bunch of cars, and on a small track like this, if you run out of gas and you're on track, you're going to get lapped.
Hmm.
And so it's better to take the penalty, go to the end of the longest line, and still be on the lead lap than it is to run out of gas on track, like Plo almost did,
Yeah.
and uh, and then you know come in for full service after that. So why they didn't do that with Plo, I'm not sure because he would have been in the exact same boat.
Hmm.
If Dixon is running
Well,
low on gas and he is the
it
best at stretching fuel, I mean, I would say he's better than Pillow. Dixon is the
first thing
best driver in the
it
league at
worked
stretching
and it
gas. So
it worked and it didn't with Lopes. He got that close to the pit box and yet just couldn't. And then obviously it all unraveled from there, which was like
yeah,
you almost measure this to perfection. But that good luck finally ran out for once in Polo's career. We see him and the team time everything so perfectly the rest of the time. But yeah, very, very odd, especially at a
yeah,
weekend where he still is sort of making his own bit of history, right? He's the first driver with four straight pole positions since Will Power did in 2011. And yet
2011,
of
yeah,
those, he's converted one of them
just
of the
one.
last four races, which is great for us
Yeah,
as neutrals who want to see that something different happen, but just so odd to say that about Alex Palou.
yeah. That kind of like a Lando Norris type conversion rate, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Palou doesn't lose it immediately at turn one though, so
Yeah,
that's something he's got going
that's
for him.
true. Yeah. But yeah, Simpson. Yeah, I don't understand why it took so long for the officials to get his car back to his pits to get fuel. They just pushed it back behind the wall at pit exit, and and then it sat
Yeah,
there for 50
I'm
laps.
not
And
sure. It seemed as if they were just, well, that's that done. I guess we can't do anything about it. And then someone maybe dusted off a rule book or someone went, wait, no,
yeah,
we can get back in this.
yeah,
Why are we not
and
doing this?
you know he ran 70 laps. We I just mentioned how good Scott Dixon is at saving fuel.
Hmm.
How was Kiffin Simpson able to get 70 laps out of that car before it ran out of fuel?
Where did he start? Let me just see on the
Yeah, he started
started fourth. Okay,
14th.
fourth. Okay, not even that. I was thinking, yeah, he's just being ultra conservative on the fuel front to do something. Not, I'm guessing, run out of fuel was the plan because that is a weird strategy. Um, yeah, bizarre weekend for Chip Ganassi. But again, it's not the first time we've seen there be small chinks in the armor there, and now we've seen it for the entire team, which
Yeah.
don't know if we're going to see that again. We've obviously got a bit of a break in for Road America now, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, we're going to a track that is obviously strong for a couple of these drivers on the team. And
Hmm.
I think maybe we just write this weekend off for Chip Ganassi and say, oh, okay, we're going to Road America in a couple of weeks. We'll be fine. We're gonna be fine. Meyer Shank Racing, Marcus Armstrong and Felix Rosenquist, decent weekend. Armstrong qualified sixth and finished P9, the top 10, and Rosenquist qualified fourth, which was great. Did not expect to see him qualifying that far up, but couldn't convert and finishes 14th.
a very strong qualifying for both of them, which was quite nice to see. We've obviously talked in the early parts of the season about them being dark horses for the year, and they have delivered in a number
Mhm.
of ways, not least of which being the 500. But it's getting to that point where they're creeping up a bit more and doing it a bit more consistently, and I'm
Mhm.
enjoying that whole process. Armstrong looked feisty throughout, and I think a little bit like you were saying in Detroit, he's still got a bit of frustration running through the veins after the Indy
Yeah.
500, and that's evident. He had some moments in that race where he was putting it on the line maybe a bit more than we were expecting him to with
Yeah.
certain moves, but he made it work. He just was on the right side of the line before it got crossed over and things could have got
Yeah.
calamitous.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting storyline to watch moving forwards. Was yeah, his final position. It's not reflective of his race. It felt like it reminded me a bit of Kirkwood, always in it, but
Mhm.
then just never really at the front, never really. Or if he was not very long, because I don't really recall it, but he was just always there. And then I think that last sort of 50 laps, the pit stops, they just came into it, and someone's got to lose out. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it was his turn this weekend.
Yeah. I think it was just the circumstances of uh, the combination of pit cycle, pit stops, and when cautions and reds came out that hampered this team a little bit. I mean, still pretty decent weekend that they
Hmm.
can walk away from. I think Rosenquist was the last car on the lead lap in 14th. So um, at a track that I would not have necessarily thought that Felix would have been dominant at, and then qualifying fourth, and then still finishing on the lead lap after the sequencing that they had. Like they can feel good about this.
Yeah,
So
I'd say so. If this is one of the tracks where you're coming in going, we'll see what happens. We're not necessarily expecting a lot, and you can come away with a result like that. That'll put you in a decent headspace for the next
yeah.
round, especially when you get back to a track where I can't remember how they've done there previously, but I imagine it suits them a bit better than St. Louis does.
Yeah. Well, and I think for Rosenquist, I think having a weekend off is going to be incredibly
Probably.
beneficial for him. You know, coming off the 500 win and then going on the media blitz directly into Detroit and then having to turn around from Detroit and then go immediately back out to St. Louis. I think out of the 25 drivers in the series, he's probably the one that was looking forward to the off weekend most.
Hey, he's probably enjoying a nice deep sleep roundabout now, but he's got a newborn, so I don't know
Yeah,
if he
sure.
is.
Ed Carpenter Racing. Obviously, we've talked about Christian Rasmussen, our biggest gainer
Hmm.
of the day, moving up from 19th to third and finishing on the podium. And then Alexander Rossi qualifying 10th and finishing in 18th.
Yeah, only really wanted to comment here because I don't think we've got much to add on Rasmussen's, as you say, but he's obviously another one of the walking wounded that we had this weekend. So strong qualifying, but obviously in comparison to how long the race is a whole other kettle of fish. So to see him slip down the order a bit is not potentially too surprising, but also not a negative because, like you say, he's still um, recovering. He's still finding out where the limits are and not wanting to overdo it. You look at some of the battles that Newgarden was having, you think if any one of them goes wrong, you are potentially out for the rest of the season because they are
Right.
not going to let you, regardless of what you try, to get back in the car.
Yeah.
Whereas Rossi, I don't know if he's more apprehensive or if the car just also wasn't there for him in the race in the same way that it was for Rasmussen. But I think he's another driver a bit like Felix. He's going to be grateful for the 2 weeks or so that we've got off between now and Road America to just not have to rush through the healing process. And he can take a couple of days of just, I'm going to just sit here
Yeah.
and just read a
Propping my
book.
leg up. Yeah. I think uh, we've talked about both Rasmussen and Ericsson at this point. I think both of these drivers were names where just a few weeks ago, or
Hmm.
at the beginning of May, we're like, these are two drivers that are the ones that are on the chopping block that will have possibly seats available, or their seats will be available at the end of the season
They
if they
mentioned that
don't
on
start before.
broadcast, right? Especially with Ericsson, I think it's a contract year. He needs a good
Yeah,
weekend. He needs a
yeah,
good headline. And while the win would have been great, P2 is not going to be bad either. And
yeah,
yeah, same for Rasmussen. Like I said earlier, 14th was his best finish up to now. You'll
yeah,
happily better that with a third.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Rasmussen led. Uh, he only led 5 laps in this race, which seems hard to believe when you think
Mm.
how dominant that car was, and um, was able to go up and race with Newgarden and have that really cool back and forth battle, towards the latter part of the race. And so, yeah, I mean, great finish for Rasmussen.
Yeah, and
Um,
Rasmussen's moved with VK at the end, and VK tried taking the podium away from him in
yes.
kind of his
Oh,
last gasp for the podium. And you thought, oh, no, it's going to happen now. It's going to be something massive. And somehow Rasmussen just kept it on the limit, not definitely not under the limit, and somehow not over, but just precisely on the limit.
yeah.
And yeah, that was one of the most sort of hold my breath moments of the race, of which there were many, but that was one I didn't
Yes.
need.
Yeah. A.J Foyt Racing really wanted better for this team this weekend. Santino Ferrucci qualifying 15th, finishing 13th, and Cal Collette starting 20th, finishing 22nd. Those numbers I don't think reflect what really should have been for either one of these drivers.
I think it's interesting. We were obviously just talking about Rasmussen and Ericsson and how they were subject to our criticism not that long ago, and they've turned it around. I think they've definitely bought themselves some time now. They're not necessarily out of the woods, but they've definitely they can see the town in the distance if they're
They
trying to
have to
get out, right?
continue a
Uh,
little bit of momentum. Yeah.
yeah, Ferrucci, he doesn't know where anything is right now. It feels like he's still plumb in the middle of that forest, going which direction is the way out here, because he's just not having a season for one reason or another. He
Yeah.
showed flashes again here, but nowhere near the kind you kind of expecting of him.
Yeah. I mean,
Whereas
he's
Colette
an oval
on
guy.
supposedly
Yeah.
this is the third oval of the season, and we've not heard anything from
Really
him.
haven't seen a lot from him.
Um,
Yeah.
whereas Colette, by comparison, okay, yeah, you look at the result and go, oh, well, they finished 22nd. That again does not tell the story. He is outperforming Ferrucci so much this season, and it goes back to what we were saying after Detroit. I may have flipped a bit since then. He listened to the podcast clearly and took my doubts maybe too personally, and was just on a whole other level. He was up in the podium places on merit
Oh
for
yeah.
portions of that race,
Right.
and then his car just goes pop, and you
Yeah.
go, oh, this poor kid, twice now, something has happened to him on an oval that is just sort of out of his control. He's nursing the ribs, the
Yep.
next in line of all the many walking wounded we've got in
Yeah.
IndyCar at the moment. Um, and yeah, it all just comes undone. But I think Will Buxton was saying in commentary that, he can still go to bed very satisfied because that is something that you, as a driver, you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
That's just racing, as we said about other things. And I think I'm looking at the fantasy team for Road America going, I've got 3 spots open on the team. Do I put Colette in there? He's the cheapest driver, but because I know he can do it, but can I trust the car?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to what we saw last week in Detroit when Chevy, started changing out all these engines before the race.
Mm,
And I think there's some sort of reliability issue that Chevy's working through. And these teams the cars and the technology behind the engines are so in tune now to where the team will know if there's something wrong with that engine before they even fire it,
mm,
or during a race or when they're running long. They will be able to see an issue develop over 20 or 30 laps. It's not very often that we see a instant catastrophic failure like we saw in Colette's car. I can maybe think of only one other instance this season where we saw that happen. Usually it's all right, we've been watching this situation on the monitor, and all the telemetry is telling us something is wrong. Bring the car in before we cook it. And, that just didn't happen here. They just let go going into turn three, and it was like instant. Like, okay,
Hmm.
this car's done. Yeah, unfortunate for him, though. I mean, he had such a great run going, and really feel bad for him because, like I said, it's the second race, second oval of the season where he was putting in a strong performance and just couldn't make it to the end. Ferrucci, like I said, another weird weekend as well. I mean, he's supposed to be an oval guy. We know that he's not necessarily the best on road courses. He's exciting to watch, but never a contender for a win on a road course. The ovals are where he's supposed to be, shining, and just didn't see it this weekend. I mean, he just barely flirted with getting into the top 10 in different points of the race and just couldn't put it together.
I think the real test for him in terms of what the rest of his season is kind of like is the next race because he podiumed there last year
Yeah,
and
true.
on a course that wasn't his speciality, as you say. So
Yep,
if he, I'm not saying he needs to pull it out there, but if he has an especially bad race there on a venue where we know he can perform, then that's going to lead to maybe a longer segment where we talk about Frucci and A.J Foyt next time out.
yeah, Ferrucci is really locked in with that team. I mean, that's a long-term deal.
Hmm.
I think Santino is, we talk about throwback drivers in NASCAR a lot.
Hmm.
These drivers that feel like the good old boys and like what racing used to be back in the day. I think Ferrucci's kind of that he's got that same sense in
He's
IndyCar.
the most
And
accurate tribute act.
yes, I would feel like him and AJ Foyt probably get along really, really, really well. If they would have ever raced together, they would have been the worst friends. They
So
would have
they
been
hated each other.
absolute enemies. They would have hated each other. But I think because they're so kind of close in, I don't want to say personality, but
Driving
drive
style,
and
maybe.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a mix of things there. But yeah, even if Santino doesn't make it into the top 15 in the standings at the end of the year, I feel like he's probably safe with this team long term.
I think if he's still in this position next year, and if that's still with a team, which I imagine he would be, and he's outperforming him still consistently, then maybe we could have conversations about what sort of triggers are in the clauses for the contract. Because if you're signed in for a long time, that's not an excuse to then not perform.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, we'll just like a few of the other things. We're going to have a few more races to figure it out. But we also have a very long off season, so if he doesn't perform for whatever reason, we've got plenty of time to dive into the details and see what the hell is going on with that team.
Santino Ferrucci is still 1 point ahead of Will Power in the points.
We know that's not the merit.
Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. Oof, this was a rough weekend for them. Uh, Schumacher, probably the only bright spot for the team, starting 18th, finishing 16th. Rahal qualifying 11th and finishing 23rd after an incident on track, and then Louis Foster qualifying 17th and finishing 20th after spending most of the day as the moving chicane.
Yeah, Schumacher was a lot happier with the weekend than I thought he was going to be when I saw his social media post. But I think that's also for the same reason that I was so happy with Power. It was a case of you've had a clean weekend, nothing bad happened. Thank
Yeah,
God. So on
yeah,
that respect, I take it. Only up 2 spots, but considering everything else that was going on and his season, I'm now thinking, yeah, I'm quite happy with that too. I will start with this. We'll try and build from here.
yeah.
Um,
And I know that he's, with Schumacher, he's had a lot of testing on these ovals to get him ready for this. But this, after, outside of Phoenix, this was really kind of his first test on a track this
hmm,
style with other cars around him. And I think from
hmm,
that standpoint,
he
he
did
did
well.
all right. Yeah, he did all right. And so, did I ever expect him to perform well? No. but you know, finishing 16th and only being a lap down, I think is
In that
probably
kind of a race, not bad.
a net win for him. And that would probably be the only shining point for this team for the weekend.
Second shining point, Schumacher finished ahead of Palou in this race.
That is true. Yes.
So
That
that's
actually is
what
pretty
I'm going to
impressive.
say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But Rahal, that wreck that he had, I mean, he was on old tires. We were at the end of the stint, but man, that to see him get out of that car and not limp or have to be carted away, that was a hard hit.
It was one of those crashes where you crash properly, but in such a way that it wasn't serious.
Yeah,
You've gone for maximum spectacle, but minimal personal injury to
yeah,
you, which is the
yeah,
best way to do it if you're going to have to go down that route.
yeah. I mean, that was a hard lick, and uh, I'm really glad that he was able to walk away and not be injured by that wreck because that could have been a lot worse for him.
Hmm.
So unfortunate weekend for him. And then, like I said, Louis Foster, I
He and this
the
track don't mix 2 years in a row now.
yeah,
Don't go well
I,
for him. If
I don't
he's
know.
not having Newgarden climbing all over him in a massive shunt, he's just incredibly slow by IndyCar standards around here. He just didn't look anywhere for the entire weekend, really.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I don't. Yeah, he just didn't have the
I
pace.
don't
I
know.
mean, there's not much we can really say about him. I mean, he's even with Dennis Hauger not essentially running the race, Foster has one whole race ahead of Hauger at this point, and he's still 2 points behind him in the point standing. So,
Speaks a lot to Dennis Hauger, though, which
yeah,
was such a frustrating thing when I saw about him not taking the race start because of the oil leak, I think it was with the car. Because I had put him in my fantasy team and it was just at the point where you couldn't change it. I was like, no, I
yeah.
just want a quick substitute for literally anyone else because I've got a chance then. So very,
They
very
don't,
quick weekend for him.
they don't allow you emergency stops in fantasy.
No, not that I'm aware of. I'm gonna have to write to them and inquire about that for next time, I think.
Yeah, well, speaking of Dennis Hauger, Dale Coyne Racing, Dennis Hauger, quite honestly, didn't qualify well. Qualified 24th anyway. Was at the rear of the field, and as they
Kept
described it,
company by Grosjean though.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, they announced right before the race that Hauger had a massive oil leak, which that can mean a lot of things. There was two drips of oil underneath the car, or somebody forgot to put a bolt
Barrel.
in, and there was just a trail of oil leading out to pit lane. Um, and then Grosjean qualified 23rd, actually made his way up to 15th, which is great. Had a decent day, I think.
Yeah,
He on track. He made some moves I wasn't expecting from him, and so I'm kind of like, oh well, maybe he's starting to get the hang of these ovals a little bit.
yeah. He obviously has the hand injury as well, the latest in that
Mhm. Yeah.
continuing saga, but survived it and made up places. And I think for a race like this, a little bit like we were talking about off podcast with Monaco, you've just got to get to the end of some of these, and then you'll see where everything patters out, and you go, that was all right, actually, not too bad. And again, for Dale Coyne, a little bit like the next team, you're not necessarily expecting a lot either, right? You've got two very capable drivers in those two that,
Mhm.
if anyone could simply outdrive the machinery, they are the two, despite the vast differences in experience. But there are still going to be limits to that.
Yeah. And I think this is another team that is going to show up in 2 weeks at Road America and perform much better than they did at St. Louis. So, um, but that next team is Juncos Hollinger Racing. Race VK, what we say, a great day fighting for a podium spot there towards the end of the race with Rasmussen qualified 13th, finishing fourth. And then Stingray Rob, he started last and through attrition made his way up to 19th. He was what, 3 laps down? I think, yeah, 3 laps. And
I think the thing with Stinger Rob we can say is that at least he's making it to the end of these races. He's not getting caught out at the moment. He's not
that's true.
crashing. He's not,
Yep.
you know, terribly, terribly, terribly far behind. He's just terribly far behind. Um, that's about all we can expect from him, really. Whereas VK, this is what the third race on the bounce that we've said we should really be not surprised by this. But I don't know
Right.
about you, a little bit surprised because you think, okay, we know the kid's good, but I didn't think he was necessarily. We have not seen this kind of consistency. Like I think we talked about either in Detroit or in Indy. Um, we have these moments, but then by the time the next one comes around, we've had a string of other results that go,
Right.
we've forgotten about it. Whereas
Yeah.
now he's not letting us forget about it.
Yeah. I think for him, he's really, if any of these seats at the bigger teams happen to open up at the end of the season, he's got to be one of the guys that these bigger teams are like, okay, we're ready to make a move. This is the guy we want to bring in.
And I think if any of the seats were to become available, looking at how things are at the moment, that Aaron McLaren third seat's looking pretty attractive in terms of
Mhm.
which one do I try and target first because Penske, not happening. Chip
Yeah.
Ganassi, probably not happening. You know, Kiffin Simpson, he's not having the best time, but he does enough for us. And
Yeah.
as we keep saying, he's got Dixon below to be compared
Yeah.
against. That's tough for anyone.
Yeah.
Um, and Andretti, you'd maybe argue Ericsson would have been the seat to go for, but also Helga is kind of maybe more in the running for that than he
Sure.
is, and they've got their own thing. So that only really leaves Aaron McLaren, and you're not going to get rid of Pato. You're not going to get rid of Lundgaard. Well, unfortunately, it looks like the Seagull is going to be the driver that VK's
Maybe.
aiming at.
Yeah. We've seen weirder things happen in silly season. So,
We have
but
what
I think he's going to be the one to watch. He's going to be the one that I think is going to make the move to a bigger team in the off season for sure. Yeah.
either that or
Uh,
you have something where Meyer Shank decides Armstrong. You can go to McLaren and we'll bring in VK there or something really silly like that. I don't see
yeah.
that happening, but just for the sake of silliness, I thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah. So after this race, we're halfway point in the season. Alex Pillow still has a 49-point lead over Kyle Kirkwood. David Malukas in third, 68 points back. And then we start kind of getting into that territory of drivers that might be a little too far back at this point. Christian Lundgaard is 96 points back and fourth. It's kind of on that cusp of like, you're, you know, a good number of points back. You have to have two fantastic races back to back where the guys in front of you don't have fantastic weekends
Mm-hmm.
to really make gains. And Pat O'Ward in fifth, he's 103 points back. Josef Newgarden with his win moves up to sixth in the points. He's 104 points back. So, we're starting to see little packs starting to form in the point standings. If things keep going the direction that they're going, maybe prior to this weekend anyway, with Pillow, starting to pull away a little bit. Unfortunately, the second half of the season is going to be like what we had last year, where we were talking about these groups of drivers in the point standings. So
Yeah, it's not over, and it's definitely a lot closer than it was this time last year, which is where the optimism comes from, right?
yeah.
It's not done, and it's not a guarantee, but
Mhm.
we've got more of a chance than we did last time, which I'll take,
Yeah.
and I will leave it there.
Who was your hot driver for the weekend?
So many good options, but I can only choose one. So I think Rena's VK for the consistency of it. Like you say, we know he can do it. We've just not seen that consistency from out one of these teams yet. Now we're starting to see it. And if he drops off in North America, so be it. Probably happen when I choose him for the fantasy team, and then it won't happen. But there we go. But for this race, Venus VK, because for JCR to be fourth, battling for a podium, we've not seen that since Connor Daly, and
Yeah.
it's been a while since
It's
that
been a
happened.
while. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like
You
that a
said you
lot.
could you said you could only pick one. There's no way I can pick. I am gonna have to
Do it.
bow
kickboxers.
out. I mean, there was so many drivers that you could consider hot. Ericsson, Rasmussen, VK, uh, Will Power. Um,
Close your
yeah,
eyes
I
and
mean,
blindly point at one, and that can be your driver
yeah,
for the weekend.
I'm just going to randomly point at a driver here on the list and close my eyes and point, and
Stingray
it's
Rob.
Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Okay. Starting fifth, finishing fifth, doesn't lead a lap. Yeah, okay, whatever.
I know why you really chose it. It's the livery. I understand. Who is your not hot
For
driver
me,
for
it's
this
it's
weekend?
Alex Palou this weekend, which doesn't seem like we should have Alex Palou on the not hot list, but
Probably
you
the
know,
last time you had to do it this season, so you got to do it while you can.
yeah. I mean, uncharacteristic incident with Siegel on track, and then uh, having the fuel issue running out on pit road, and then not being able to recover. Um, yeah, just not the weekend that he wanted, especially after leading a good chunk of the race. But yeah, who's your not hot for the week?
For Louis Foster, because he was just in no man's land and not in a I'm stuck in third place and can't get anywhere kind of good no man's land. It was just the World War One kind of no man's land of this is terrible. I don't want to be here.
Yeah. For me, well, for both of us, I think
Yeah.
we're for hard luck, we're
There
in
it is
agreement
easy to
here.
choose one driver.
Yeah. On the count of three, let's go ahead and say it. One, two, three, Cal Colette.
Kyle Collette. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Uh, and I put this name in the notes before the end of the race, even because I'm like,
fair.
nobody's nobody is going to be able to top him for the hard luck. I mean, just
You
unfortunate.
certainly wouldn't want someone to give it a go, would you?
No, I want it. I think you'd have to have something like Josef Newgarden crashing on the last lap.
Hmm.
Something like that could have topped what Cal Colette had happened to him. So yeah, unfortunate weekend for him, and hopefully he can bounce back. I think what we
Third time's the charm, right? When's the
well, I
next
think
oval?
yeah, I think when we get to Milwaukee, he's definitely going to be the one to watch.
I'm gonna have
It
to start
should
strategizing my fantasy
it
team accordingly
it
and
should
go, right,
not
I want to have
be
him
yeah.
available for that.
Yeah, should not be a surprise to see him running up at the front once we get to Milwaukee, I think. So,
No, I'd agree with
yep.
that.
As much as we enjoyed the IndyCar race and how exciting it was watching cars come through the field, uh, the Indy Next race was every bit more exciting to watch a driver come through the field. Uh,
Yeah,
I
Miles
don't know if
Rowe
you got a
coming.
chance to watch the highlights of this race, or if you got to watch the
I,
race in full. Uh,
I watched the
my,
highlights after the IndyCar race, so I knew
yeah,
what was coming, but I just thought I have to see this because this
yeah,
doesn't happen too often. It's very
yeah.
rare that you get the last to first challenge. I think the last time I got that was possibly Bortoletto in his F3 season in the
Okay,
season finale in Monza.
okay,
So it was like bright and early on a Sunday morning in sort of early September, and you're watching the last to first challenge, and you're going, "Oh, he's going to be a star one day." And we have now seen the American equivalent because that was
yeah. Miles
because when it said
Rowe.
last to first, before I'd seen it, I thought
Mhm.
that's going to be a gradual thing over the race, but he was already there by what lap 35 or something, 70.
35. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
yeah. I was took the lead on lap. Miles Rowe, he qualified well, had to start at the rear of the field though, and uh, you knew he was going to make his way up through the pack, but the way that he did it and as dominantly as he did it, it just
mm,
kind of defies race logic. Um, like I said, I think it was lap 30, somewhere between 30 and 35 that he was able to get up to the lead, and just like he was off from there. Just
Well, he was just in control. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Um, Tulio finished second, or Pearson third, Niels coming fourth, and then Taylor rounding out the top five. They would have been quite annoyed at this, I would imagine. We're trying to have our own nice little thing going, and then this guy just comes out
Yeah.
of literal nowhere to beat us all.
Well, and
Oh,
also I'd like to say, but Josh Pearson finishing third and Niels Coolin finishing fourth, those are not names we normally see towards the
No,
top of the running
no,
order.
which is probably why they were
Um,
so annoyed about it, right? So like, it's our day, and
yeah,
then Miles Rhodes goes, "Hang on a second, no,
yeah,
no, no."
I'm coming through. Yeah. So after the day, Nikita Johnson is crept back into the points lead there. Fittipaldi is in second. He's only 2 points behind, and then Timmy Kacharzik is just 5 points behind. So this
Which
three-way
I'm
battle,
sorry for him because
yeah,
I think I said last time out he'd been finishing in the top five every single round, and then he didn't here,
yeah, then
so
yeah,
I may have
you
cursed
jinxed
him. I
him.
do apologize.
Yeah. But still only 5 points back. I mean, this is going to be a hot battle in the
Oh,
second
very much
half of
so.
their season. It's going to be a really fun one to watch. But let's not forget, I mean, Max Taylor, who's I think at the beginning of the season, he was the one that we're like, all right, this is the guy that is going to run away with it. And that hasn't happened. He's 27 points back. He's still in it, but
I'm
uh
glad for it though because it means
yeah,
we get the first season in a while where we haven't had someone just run away with it.
yeah. I mean,
It's a
last
nice
season
tight
with
battle.
Hauger, where it was kind of like, oh, okay, Alex
Who's
Palou
finishing
2.0.
second?
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be really fun to watch these guys for the second half of the season. And this is a really interesting crop of drivers as well. This is what feeds IndyCar.
Hmm.
And, um, you know,
That's nothing
there's,
against these drivers or Kyle Collette in the sense, but it feels like we're getting the Kyle Collette maximum in terms of the drivers available to us in terms of capable, but we don't know how capable until we put a couple of them in IndyCar. Whereas, if you put in Foster and you're putting Hauger in after their dominant seasons, you kind of have a certain expectation. Whereas Collette, we were kind of scratching our heads a little bit at the start of
yeah,
the season, but now we're talking quite positively about him. And these are all drivers that make me think in that same way of, I don't know what any of you could do, but I'd be intrigued to find out. And I hope someone takes a chance at least one or two of you because that would be good fun.
yeah. I mean, we talk about seats opening up and, you know, there's other drivers in these
JCR could have
teams
yet
that
another season where they have a completely new lineup next year at the rate this is
very, very
going.
true. Very, very true. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a possibility of what, maybe 3, 4 seats that could potentially be open in second tier teams in IndyCar, that any of these drivers that are in the top 7 or 8 could pretty easily slot into, I think. So, like I said, it's gonna be a fun second half of the season for Indy next. If you're not watching, you need to be.
Definitely. And we have one more thing just before we wrap up. I'm going to whiz through this real quick just because I'd forgotten to do this every other time that he's been around lately. But Colton Herta, obviously your favorite driver from IndyCar past. He's obviously over in Formula 2 at the moment. So he's not lighting the series up, but he's not doing terribly either. Qualifying is his main issue at the moment. I think we've had 3 rounds since we last really mentioned him: Miami, Canada, and Monaco, 14th, 19th, and 14th qualifying. He's finished in the points in 2 of the 3 rounds that we've had. Monaco didn't really go his way. We were talking about that a little bit. He had a questionable penalty
Yeah,
towards the end of that race that was
yeah,
a bit awkward. Um, but this is P13 at the moment in the standings with 16 points overall. I don't know how to measure this just yet. There's a lot of the season left to go. That's going to be something we can talk about deep in the off season because of when their finale will be. It's going to be like
mhm,
November.
yeah,
Um, but the one thing I will say just briefly on this is that I don't know if you feel the same way, but with Colton Herta, in IndyCar, we can criticize him. We it's kind of like this is our domain. This is where we can do it. But as soon as he goes out of that bubble, I found myself going, "Hey, let me meet to Colton Herta." It's like he's our driver. He's over there. I don't think you're on the same level from the look on
yeah,
your face there, but I go, I can criticize him, but you can't because he's our IndyCar driver.
yeah,
If he comes back, then by all means we'll do it. But when he's out on his adventures, leave the kid alone. He's
yeah.
our
It's
he's our
true.
IndyCar driver.
I,
It's our Colton Herta.
yeah, I would welcome him back to IndyCar if things don't work out in F2 and F1 for him. But I think a lot of IndyCar fans expected more from him going into F2. Now, it'd been different if he would have just made the jump to F1, like Andretti had been trying to get for the last several years
Mm.
for him. But I really expected more from him than 16 points on the season.
Thing like this, the qualifying.
We still have a long
Once
way
he
to
gets
go.
that
Yeah,
sorted, yeah, and there's a long way
yeah,
to go. You do get crazy races in F2. We've got a lot of races coming up now, a lot of mixed
yeah,
conditions potentially. But it's also all circuits he's never been to before.
yeah.
So there
It's
is that
true.
element of it. I
Yeah.
think the second season that he's probably going to have, that's where we start measuring. But that could be a whole podcast for later in the year.
um, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. We finally get a little bit of a break.
Mm,
Seems like we've had like 6 weeks in a row where we just constantly been fixed on IndyCar, and now we get a little bit of a break before we go to Road America. We've got a lot of former drivers in the or former winners at Road America in the field. Alex Palou was our winner last year,
he was.
as well as 23 and 21. Scott Dixon's last win at Road America was in 2020. Also won in 17 as well.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Josef Newgarden has a pair of wins here. Will Power's got a pair of wins here. Um, Felix Rosenquist has a win here.
Hmm.
And Alexander Rossi has a win here. So, um, kind of a stacked class, I would say. Uh, Maybe wide open. We'll have to see, but we'll be back to cover it for sure in 2 weeks. Come back. Oh, it is that race on. I
June
think we're getting a
22nd, I think.
21st, June 21st, and uh, it's not a night race, thank God. It's a Sunday night race. Yeah, that's a little much. I think part of the reason why we had a Sunday night race this week was due to, and I know you don't get this where you're at in Europe, but UFL football championship game was on directly before IndyCar. Um, so shout out to Louisville for that win in their Mega Bowl or whatever they call it. I'm a Birmingham fan, so I checked out after they lost. So, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we hope everybody returns to join us then.